Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy, 30-year comic book industry veteran and three-time novelist and finders of lost loves. So I'm on a Sal Buscema roll. When it's hard to explain to the younger crowd because I'm older that Sal Buscema in the 70s, he was ubiquitous. He was everywhere. If you had a superhero comic, a mainstream Marvel comic, he eventually did a fill-in issue, and it didn't matter who the characters were, how many there were. He just picked up on it and could draw. He had a shorthand style, and at the time, it was very much dependent on the inkers who actually did finishes, and that's the kind of job I've always wanted. And a lot of times I've gotten tracer jobs. I just trace. I'm like, I prove I could trace with grace. But you'll see the effects between different inkers on Sal Buscema. He also did a lot of non-superhero books too. He did some black and white magazine stuff. He did, there's other stuff. The last couple issues of Skull the Slayer, which I'll bring out in another episode because I already loaded this up. But if not for Sal, I doubt Marvel Comics would still be afloat, because he saved so many asses. Where they would use reprints, or they would use him as a fill-in artist with a standalone story by Bill Mantlo usually, and the books were already super late. It wasn't until like 1980 when Jim Shooter took over that he got rid of the lateness, because it was just killing the book, killing Marvel, and combined with the fact that there was also a secondary market where people took the covers of a book and would rip off the top, or they would just rip the cover off and resell them. Instead of 25 cents, they would sell 3 coverless comics for like 30 cents, which was great. I mean, it was a great way to get in on the Marvel Universe. First steps. I'm going to start off with John Verpoorten, who does quite a bit of inking in this, which is amazing because he's not known primarily as an inker. He is known as a production guy. He's the guy who chases everybody around and said, hey, your book's late, and he was a very tall guy, very broad guy, kind of intimidating, but not in a bad way. And unfortunately, he died young. He was just a very heavy guy, and he also smoked, so that's not the best combination. But he does a lot of great inking during Captain America and the Falcon, and he has a bold style because he knows this needs to be reproduced on shitty pulp paper. And so here it comes, everybody. My screed against the Stranger, worst character ever. Every time he shows up, he has a different motivation. Well, he shows up first in Silver Surfer #5, and he's got a bomb that's going to destroy the Earth, and then he leaves, and then he comes and he goes. He has really stupid things going on. But I just had to start with him because, if you're a historian of my episodes of my channel, you'll know that I jag on him all the time. And it turns out it's not the Stranger, but it is Giacoia. Woo! Oh my gosh! Oh! So thrilling! I can't stand it. Okay, I went a little too high on the squealing meter there. So he does this and he does that, and it's so painfully boring. But the inks are really nice and sharp, really crisp. Batrock's costume is color wrong for this issue. It's usually orange and purple. But who cares? It's Batrock. It says Batrock Zilliper, Scorpion, and Mr. Hyde. I'm going to do a future episode where he has different partners. Like he teamed up with Batrock when the Roger Stern, John Byrne era, and he also usually was with the Cobra in a lot of books. But moving on. Now, this is inked by Frank Giacoia, who is a spectacular inker. He has a bold John Romita style. He really does. And love that splash by Sal. Oh my gosh. So cool. This is before the Falcon had wings too. He was just getting around. He had a claw in his hand that would shoot out and with a hook, and he would swing around like Spider-Man. So this just has a very, very strong Romita vibe on the faces, on everything. It's such a great era. You got the classic pose, but look how bold everything is. I miss that because now a lot of the line work is left up to color, and I know I bellyache about this every episode, but recognizing this stuff as a kid, I knew how important an inker was, and I loved it because you sort of had last say in how the art would look, because the color was just perfunctory. It was just, very basic. But I actually wanted to be an inker when I broke into comics, because, I would have a final say, but do no harm. It's the inker's oath. I would want to do a sensational job. And I've had moments where I have been pretty sensational. I've had ones that I suck. I'll be frank, and sometimes it's a good match, sometimes it's not. But this is what gets me going. Yeah. We go to the infamous, but great storyline where the Cap of the 50s, he's revived from suspended animation, as is the villain Bucky. And he's just, he sees menaces everywhere. And this one's by Frank McLaughlin, who he's kind of a stealth inker, I think. I feel like, because nobody knows who he is until you see it and you go, oh, Frank McLaughlin. He doesn't get his due. Nice cover by Sal. And what's great about the coloring is that both Steve and Sharon have been sunburnt, and these two guys haven't, and that's how Agent 13 / Sharon notices his man was sunburned. This man is not. So McLaughlin just has a real nice, bold style, and he'll also do real heavy lines and then go into a lighter line, which contour line. So good stuff. Or John Verpoorten. He did quite a few of the Captain America Falcon eras of this era. I love it. So the original Viper. Okay, now I'm gonna step back a touch because I wanted to show you. This is John Romita on the inks. Now, when this book came out, it says Sal Buscema penciler, and nowhere does it say inker. And I could tell, even when I was a kid, I said, that's John Romita. I mean, aside from the faces, Romita was sort of hired to keep aside from drawing and such and creating character designs, he also was given the assignment to make the faces on model. Like when Ross Andru was doing Spider-Man, a lot of the faces were redrawn by Romita on Peter Parker and Mary Jane, primarily the main characters. So, but this is Sal Buscema looking a lot like John Romita, especially there. So I only found out later that my guess was correct. It was John Romita. And what's great is these Marvel Masterworks are so true to the original printed versions that they kept that out. They could have put John Romita in there. And, Nope. Here's the Fifth Sleeper. I've done an episode on this. So, yeah. Stuff like that's very Sal Buscema, where he picked that up from John Buscema's brother. Get the old cat fight going. But yeah, it's beautiful stuff. Beautiful it was. And now over to Marvel Team Up. Beautiful Kane cover. Just insane. How do you design a cover like that? It's crazy. It just reads across, but this shouldn't work, but it works. So that's all I gotta say. So Sal Buscema and Vinnie Colletta doing finishes, and I have to say, Vinnie did a pretty good job on some of it. That kind of stuff I kind of dig. And Sal's stuff, he put the information there, but he didn't fill every panel like Kirby did, with everything. So there wasn't that much for Vince to erase. I don't know if people got to him and said, hey, enough of the erasing backgrounds and, wrecking pencilers' work. Especially when he was inking George Tuska, because George Tuska wasn't big on backgrounds, period. So you gotta have the old Marvel characters meet each other. I don't like how Spider-Man is inked by Colletta. It's just odd. The eyes are small. it's just very bland. So, like this kind of stuff I dig. And he meets the Valkyrie. See how bland that looks? It kind of needs a lot more, especially a foreground character. You know, add a little more beef to it. It's got a little bit to it. The way Colletta inked Sal's the Aragorn, the horse of Valkyrie. That's just really, really cool stuff. Hello. That's like a teenager. That's pretty crappy. So, and she pops his balloon. So, you know, Vinnie was okay. And also, the pencils at the time, the art was on cheap paper, so, you know, it often looked, you know, more, it worked better. That kind of stuff is kind of, I don't like that. And it's hard to describe, because sometimes, I can't describe it. I'm an inker. I speak only in ink. But he does a nice job on Man-Wolf there. Character I never cared for until they made him a cosmic character. Oh, Ed Hannigan and John Romita. So here he comes. Down, boy. And it's so silly. Clearly Jerry Conway's having fun with this book. This is Baron Ludwig von Stuff, as in Stuff from Blazing Saddles. It's like he just couldn't help himself. So now we go to Mike Esposito. This is one of my favorite all-time issues. I've mentioned it before. Wow, what a cover. I guess it's all Romita. Or Buckle or Romita. Hard to say. But here, now, I consider Mike Esposito the baseline for inking Sal. It's not that interesting. It's performing the function of making it reproduce, but it's not as bold as John Verpoorten's. And I mentioned Mike Esposito. I liked his stuff on Metal Men in the late 60s. He did some Wonder Woman stuff that was really good, but by this time, when he was inking Sal, I really didn't like it. I didn't like it. Especially, like on this shiny paper here, it looks like a coloring book. It could use... but the colors were limited at the time. But yeah, at this time you had Jim Starlin, you had all kinds of other artists that were just adding a lot of meat to the characters. You would have Klaus Janson inking Sal on the Defenders, as someone had mentioned in my previous post, and this was just very much dependent on the storytelling of Sal and Bill Mantlow's incredible writing. You know, he was another guy. These two together, a little aside, when the brief time Marv Wolfman was editor-in-chief, he actually scheduled a book every month called Marvel Fill-In, and he would go through different books through the line and stick these in as a as a one and done. And that was genius. It was pure genius. So it's only because the story and Sal's storytelling does this make it a treasure, but the inking is so there. And I've said this before, I could probably take this, arrogant me, I could probably take this and ink over it and fill it out a little stronger, because it's just shorthanded, you know. So, the Griffin, no, also he's a fun character too. So, as I showed, it's just very, that's just great spread, but it could have been better, because it's just, everybody looks like they're made of tin. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike Esposito. As I said, I liked your stuff on DC a lot more. Now we go to the Defenders. And we get this young whippersnapper called, this may be his first major gig. He did a fill-in issue over Sal Buscema, Bob McLeod. I've been calling it McLeod for a million years, but I've met him. I interviewed him actually for Comic Book Resources in 2009, I think it was. His stuff is stunning. This is the stuff that Sal should be treated to more often. there's just more dimension. Look how three-dimensional these faces are. Like Bruce Banner right there, he's very three-dimensional. And you've got Luke Cage. It's so exciting to see this stuff. See, that's the thing. Sal he was doing so much work that it was dependent on what inker was available. And if it was a new inker like McLeod, that's just so cool. Remember that, like, for 5 minutes, Yellow Jacket was cool when he was in the Defenders? It's a shame they didn't keep that up and they just kind of made him, you know, just a fifth wheel. Now we have crazy Go King cover. I love those. Now we have Jack Abel. Now Jack Abel, he inked Gene Colan on Gene Colan's first Marvel work in the mid-'60s. Colan had worked with Timely Comics, and he had went over to DC, I think, to work with Romance Comics and some other stuff, and he used the term. Gene Colan was Adam Austin, because you needed a pseudonym if you were going to work with both companies. And Jack Abel was, there's Adam Austin, and I can't remember the other guy's name. It'll come to me. So, Gary Michaels. And his stuff is a bit flat. And I love Abel's stuff that he did over Trippy's Hulk. That was just stunning stuff. Let's see. So there we go. Let me get that 2-page spread going. Another 2-page spread. And it has a little more nuance to it than the other spread that I showed you, the Esposito inked. But again, I wish the coloring could have been a little more adventurous. But hey, you had back then you just send them on the way. You get them done, send them on the way. So now we go to, someone had mentioned a favorite was Joe Staton. Now Joe Staton at this point, he's been in the business about 2 years. He started off doing E-Man for Charlton Comics, where I wish there was a Charlton Comics now that would just like print anything you gave them, because Charlton needed, they didn't pay well, or if they didn't pay at all, you could like start off and have somebody publish a short story in their book, and even if you don't get paid, it's like you're growing up in public, but not quite in the mainstream. You get better and better. It was like a farm team, basically, for, I say basically way too much. Bernie writes and cover, little nod to Swamp Thing, but it has Man Thing. So, now, I like Joe Staton stuff in a lot of ways, but sometimes it's a little too cartoonish. But that's my opinion, okay? Don't click off. It's still strong. It's still very, very expressive. It's just got a real nice feel to it. I'm going to jump ahead a touch to issue 200. Man, beautiful cover. Rich Buckler and Romita. So the Hulk has to go inside Glenn Talbot's brain to take out some kind of tumor that's killing him. And it's a tour de force. It actually has Banner's brain with this helmet on. I don't know how. I'd have to reread it, but it's not salient to the subject of Inkers right here. And that's kind of... I love how Staton gets real gloppy on the inside. It's just... It's like you could hear squishing sounds as he's walking through the brain. So... And this was real treat because you have old foes showing up. The Missing Link, Juggernaut, and Abomination, whose their only powers is that they're really friggin' hardcore. They're huge monsters that's super strong, and they can actually give Hulk a struggle. That's great. Oh, one of those classic send away the send away the bad guy punches. And you get the Rhino. I love that kind of rendering too that Staton is doing. Oop, here comes the Mandarin and Sandman. That's a very nice figure. Yeah, Staton himself is a great artist, and he did a lot of stuff at DC shortly after this as a penciler. Here we go. It's kind of interesting, just dumb coincidence. I don't think Byrne even meant this, but when John Byrne did his short run on the Hulk, he had the Avengers attack Hulk, and they were the most powerful members that were there. And 3 of them were here, and Doc Samson showed up too. So you got the Gremlin. It's just a party. It's such a treat. See all this stuff going on. Move on. So there's this Conan, Earthsat's Conan, that is fighting the Hulk in another issue. This is the stuff I wasn't keen on, though, because it looks a little too cartoony to convey drama. But that's my hang-up. I love that. Now that's great. With the gaping maw. There's Gorilla. Nice Trimpy fill-in. It was kind of weird having Trimpy fill in his own book for the longest time. So the Hulk starts destroying stuff. That's his thing. That's his thing. And I did like the lineup at the time. They had the female Red Guardian. And they had Valkyrie in her horrible temporary costume. And she uses the flat of her blade. For so many years, I hated characters with swords because Comics Code wouldn't let you slice and dice somebody. So they would say something like, "You're only worthy of the flat of my sword." I would just be like, give it a break, okay? Why don't you just get like a baton? That I really love, how the weight that Staton is giving the Hulk right there. He's really upset because I'm not going to tell you why. I mean, you can read it, I guess, but I'm not going to spoil it. 50-year-old spoiler. Here we go. Love that cover. That's probably Buckle Romita. And Absorberman gets a costume for a change. First time ever. And there's a sexy landlady, who... Those purple pants, they're just nuts. They're probably like, we don't have any openings for you because of friggin' purple pants. And I've said this before, the reason he had purple pants forever and ever, it was cool in the 60s and the 70s when things were getting a little more grounded in the Marvel Universe. It sounds silly to say because it's superhero and comic books and fisticuffs, but he kept wearing purple pants because Marvel, they didn't have a whole lot of merchandising, but that was the standard, that was the model on the model sheets. He has green skin, he has purple pants on stickers, on patches, on children's books, everything. And it wasn't until, I don't think it was until, I don't know. I don't think it was till, I can't even think of it. It might have been Peter David and Todd McFarlane got rid of the purple pants. So, really nice stuff. Okay. Joe Staton. Marvel team up again. Alright, here we go. This was a huge disappointment to me. I mean, you got a Dave Cockrum cover, and this is a year into the X-Men. It's not even, maybe it's like a year into the all-new, all-different X-Men by Len Wein, Chris Claremont, and Dave Cockrum. And it's just like, it's so spectacular. He brought the heat. But Esposito is inking, and The other thing too is all these new characters. To Sal's credit, he's drawing these new characters like every month. He doesn't know if he has to do the Legion of Superheroes or everyone who's ever been an Avenger. He does it. He does it. Like that Cloud there. Ah, what a lost opportunity. I mean, I could see if these characters were hyper detailed to use that as an offset the details, but it's pretty. And on white paper, boy, is it pop. It doesn't pop out. So this is one of those books that I wish I could have inked, re-ink. And it's arrogant of me. I'm saying that, but I mean, you gotta understand where I'm coming from. Also, well, there's a lot of small panels here because there is a huge story. It took 3 writers, Chris Claremont and okay, from a plot by Bill Mantlo, Chris Claremont, and Bonnie Wilford, whoever that is. And there's so many small panels, though. It would be a real easy job to do, but it would be kind of neat to have maybe some cross hatching, maybe some double lighting, because they do that in a lot of books where there's not even a shadowy area. It's just like a dramatic lighting. So I don't feel very strongly about this story because it's just like that too. That the lines are the highlight there, but you should have like shadows away from this pit since it's radiating, and he should be almost all in black as well as his arms and his legs. So, missed opportunity. Okay, issue 58. Ghost Rider. I love Ghost Rider. This is by Pablo Marcos, who was around doing a lot of stuff. He was my favorite George Perez inker on Avengers, second only to Joe Sinnott, Fantastic Four. And he added a lot of drama, and he added a lot of... I can't quite describe it. Everything he did looked great. It looked cool. And, sure, it was a bit melodramatic, but that was 70s comics. We were heavy on the melodrama. And Trapster's like, I'm going to show all those others. I love how the paste, how that's depicted there. And the old thermal updraft trick where Ghost Rider goes round and round and round, creates this hot air vortex, and it like slows Spider-Man down and gets caught. The Human Torch does that trick all the time, or did. And I'm just like, if it's all thermal updraft and it's strong enough to hold you up in the air, you're going to be crispy fried. I'm sorry, there's no other... I never bought into this. It's a fun gag, but it's really convenient. A lot of writers, like on the FF or when he would guest star, he'd be like, oh, I'll save this person falling down from like the... like the Chrysler building, I'll use a thermal updraft. And each time the person would fall, I picture skin going off and then like the organs melting off and then a skeleton ends up getting turned into like this ball of mush by the time Ghost Rider catches him. So, but, it's at the end of the day, it's all comics. We like comics. Yeah, see, I like that drama on... Where else are you going to read a fiery motorcycle on an aircraft carrier? So, really, really cool stuff. I love it. Let's go to the New Mutants. Okay, as I said, I'm an old timer. There was one book called the X-Men. One book, and there was no. What do you call it? This was the very, very first spin-off book, The New Mutants, and it was so new and so fresh and all new characters, and it was created by Chris Claremont, the X-Men writer, and Bob McLeod, who I mentioned before, I thought was McLeod, and he was quote-unquote just an inker. He started off doing a graphic novel. This is the reduced version of it. This was a New Mutants classic. It was a format that a lot of books had, but they've eschewed those. I don't even know why I had to say eschew. So he created all these fantastic characters. and it was so enjoyable. Oh, and Bob McLeod redesigned the Sentinels. Where are they? There they are, right there. Got a Gil Kane flare there. Love that, man. Man, oh shit, that's beautiful. I like that redesign, but they went back to the old version. So after so many issues, after a graphic novel and 3 entire issues, he was relieved by Sal Buscema, but he stayed on as the inker. So these are my favorite kind of pages to ink. So, and then you're going to see classic stances of Sal Buscema, but with Bob McLeod inking it, it ties it together. It keeps that flavor going. Wow, nice color hold there. So you can see the faces are the ones that Bob McLeod designed. Gave them little nuances that a lot of artists can't really do in the comics field anyway. And the Silver Samurai. This is a very odd looking, it's Armando Gill, who inked a lot of Michael Golden in the 80s. They did, like, I think Bucky Bazaar and some other stuff. Oh, no, not Bucky Bazaar. Oh, Bucky O'Hare, that's it. So, this is beautiful stuff. And as good as McLeod's Defender stuff was, this was even better because he had an ownership of the characters. I don't know if that means legally. I think maybe for a time it was what we call royalties. But having him ink these characters he designed really helped tie it all in. It's like I didn't mind that it was Sal Buscema. I know that sounds silly, but there's that. But here comes Armando Gill and John Tartaglione, who he's been around since, this is about 84. He'd been in the industry about almost 20 years, Tartaglione. He inked Gene Colan around issue, like from Daredevil from issue, I don't know, 20 to 40 or something like that. So Armando Gill, he's interesting. It's, for superhero type stuff, it's not my thing. It's a little too, I don't know. How you like my descriptions? I don't know. That's like really, really informed commentary. So it's just kind of, I guess it's sort of samey. Like everything has the same texture. And it's only because he's putting a lot of textures into the images that wherever they end up, they sort of have that sameness to them. I could be completely full of shit. Love that. Now that's a Bob McLeod. There we go. Back to Bob McLeod. And there's one more I'm going to get to right now, but hang on there. I got to go grab it. Yeah, just talk among yourselves and I'll be back. And now we go into one of my favorites, and it's very divisive. Akin and Brian Garvey they just came on the team, came on board in ROM Space Knight, and really, really had a heavy style that I adored. That's great. It has that. Here we go. Akin and Garvey on the inks. And look at the line work. It's spectacular. And Sal hated it, and other comic book purists, you know, like a lot of my peers, if I have any, weren't keen on it, but these guys are clearly drawing from Michael Golden. They're giving that, this is the way I would lean. Like here, it's like, that might not have been there, that shade. It's friggin' amazing. So glad they came out with these omnibus collections. And Michael Golden was a huge influence on so many people. I mean, the guys from Gaijin Studio, like I mentioned before, Brian Stelfreeze, Dave Johnson, who I assisted when I was breaking into the comics industry, Jason Pearson, Cully Hamner. And it's a trick where it's clean, but it's not clean. It's orderly, but there's still... Here's an example. This is the kind of stuff I started off doing when I was assisting Dave, is those black shapes that are pointy for the shadows. They're called tapers. And the whole trick is like to kind of ink them like a picket fence. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. And even if you screw up one of them, you have to keep going. There's a fantastic inker named Carl Story, who nobody knows because he doesn't promote himself, but he inked Chris Sprouse on Tom Strong. And he's just one of those. And he inked a lot of Brian Stelfreeze stuff too. I mean, it was, yeah, it's crazy, but in a good way. So, you know, like that. That's the lighting I was talking about. That's the kind of stuff I would tweak and play with. Right out of what is it? Micronauts number 1 or 2. I can't remember which it had. Something helpless. So he's doing all those tricks. We can get black and white version of it. Okay. Ian Akin and Brian Garvey's original artwork. Oh, I guess that's, yeah, that's Zipatone there, the yellow spots. Because that Zipatone ages over time, but I like it. I like when it ages. It gives it a patina. Yeah, patina. That's what they call it in Antiques Roadshow. The funky old patina. Joe Jusko, already a legend. Still cranking out great, great artwork. So this is one of my favorites. Whoop, let me get better. Too much reflection there. How about that? So my favorite inkers are Ian Akin and Brian Garvey, and I wonder what happened to them. I should maybe talk to them or interview them. I don't know if they're in the comics industry still. So you tell me what you think. Do you think this is too much? Do you think they stepped over the line? Do you, how do you like Bob McLeod? How do you like Pablo Marcos? How do you like Joe Staton? How do you like Vinnie Colletta? And John Verpoorten, Frank McLaughlin, and John Romita. Yep. Here we go. So let me know what you think. There's probably others I can look into. Yeah, there you go. Another Sal. And you got those Garvey guys causing trouble. So let me know what you think. And I could probably do a third episode because so many people have inked Sal. He was, like I said, ubiquitous. That's all. Let me know what you think. What inkers and what jobs has he done that I haven't mentioned yet? That maybe with an inker that I haven't displayed. Or what is it? Showcased. That's the word. And that's it. Thank you for spending time with me. There's hundreds and thousands of YouTube channels to watch, and you decided to spend a half hour with me, and that means the world to me. I really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. And even if you are a subscriber, please make sure you're still subscribed to getting notifications, because there's a lot of YouTube channels, because of that evil-ass algorithm, it's dropping off subscribers, like arbitrarily, and I don't know what the end game is. I don't know if it's just some random AI thing. It has nothing to do with the content of the episodes. But please double check if you're subscribed and you are getting notifications, and share with a friend if you're if you want to do that. And that's it. Talk to you all later, and thanks.